Hey, good day to you. This is Stan Prochowski with Prochowski Estate Law, and this is the Ask Stan show every Thursday at 12 noon, where I answer all your estate planning questions submitted throughout the week. If you have a question about wills, trusts, Medicaid pre-planning, Medicaid crisis planning, the nursing home, or just estate planning in general, just send them to me here on Facebook or call me at 363-7222 or email me at prochowskiestatelaw@gmail.com. I'll answer them live on WKSR Radio, and we post them here on the Ask Stan show every Thursday. So, let's get right to it.
KSR with the Stan Prochowski oldie of the week here on the Prochowski Estate Law segment, Land of a Thousand Dances. Boy, you picked another good one this morning.
That is a good one. We used to call it the na-na-na-na song.
The na-na-na, yeah. Well, it's good to have you. Before you begin, let me ask about your wife, Tammy. How's she doing?
She's doing just fine. Much better than me, I'm sure. So.
Well, all right, sir. We'll let you go right into your program here, and glad to have you again.
Oh, great. It's always good to be here. I appreciate it. And what I want to talk about today is I want to touch on something I started on last week, but I want to pick up where I left off a little bit, and that's, we are in a new year, and, at Prochowski Estate Law and Elder Law, we do estate planning. I always tell folks the emphasis is on the word planning. I mean, something has to be done ahead of time. So if you don't have one, you really ought to consider doing it for the benefits it does, not so much for you, but it definitely benefits your family. They're the ones that will have to deal with things if something happens to you. But, if you've got a plan or you don't have a plan, everybody experiences what we call major life events. And, when I do trust plans for folks, I recommend they have them reviewed about every 2 to 3 years, but and that's what we're looking for. Make sure they're up to date, changes in the law, that sort of thing. I would even suggest that every January maybe take a look at it. And the reason I bring that up is because this year we're going to experience some changes. Now this is going to be a topic I'm trying to put together for a future radio show. But with the new administration just coming in, the estate planning business. I mean, we're conducting seminars and speeches and studies, and we're trying to figure out what changes are going to be made because we don't know exactly what they are, but we know they're planning on making some. And some might be pretty significant. Normally this area of the law doesn't change much, but they vowed to change it, so we're trying to deal with it. So when things like that come up, it's not hard to keep things up to date, and it's something that needs to be done. So, but some of the other regular life-changing events that come up that could cause you to revisit, your plan, or if you don't have a plan, to create one. Some of the more common things that come up, if you have something like the birth or the adoption of a child, some people in their plans, they mention the children by name. If you mention them by name, it excludes anybody that is born or adopted that hadn't been named yet. Kobe Bryant, in his will, he had a plan, and it did exactly that. 2 of his 4 children were named and 2 were not, and so that it's in court now dealing with that. If you have the death of a beneficiary or guardian, I always recommend when you have beneficiaries or guardians that you have a couple of them, 2 or 3 even. If one passes away, now if you only have one and something happens to them, now we got a hole in our plan. We got to go to court to get another person appointed. And avoiding court is exactly why we want to do that. Another thing is if you have a beneficiary or you don't name a beneficiary on like a life insurance policy, then they'll only pay to your estate, which means you got to open up a probate, go to court. Again, it's exactly what we're trying to avoid. If you have a birth of a grandchild or great-grandchild, that's in the same category as birth of a child. If you want to include them, you'll have to specifically put them in there. Other people, if you move to another state, or if you move from another state to here, don't think there's a need to redo everything just because you move from state to state. But some things are state-specific. So some things like your power of attorney and your health care documents, those are state-specific. But we can always adjust another state's trust plan to be honored by Tennessee and give them full faith and credit. If you acquire a significant amount of assets, or if you incur a lot of debt, that's the kind of thing that can be, a life-changing event. So,
all right. Hey, let me ask you something.
Okay.
I've heard the Mega Millions jackpots are overflowing right now, and if you happen to win, you'd sure want to have that pot protected, right?
Oh yeah. Think of it this way. Here's what kind of happens when people have a will or a trust, and they they name a few things. A lot of folks will give specific bequests and they'll say, I want this bank account divided up this way, or I want this piece of land to go to this child. And they can be pretty specific about how they divide it up. But then you end up with what is called the residual of the estate, and there's usually a section in either the will or the trust that talks about passing the residual. And you can pass it in percentages, or you can give it to charity. If you inherit money or win the lottery or something, some sort of windfall that you come into some property, and you don't update it, if you don't specifically deal with that piece of property, especially if it's, like you say, a lottery winning can be significant, it may very well pass by the residuary clause simply because it's not identified. And that may or may not be what you had in mind. A charity. Well, if you win $1 million and don't say anything, that may go to the charity. Now that may be what you want. You may be okay with that, but you may have other circumstances in your life where you might want to redirect that. So that is a good question.
All right. Well, speaking of the Mega Millions, I heard on Fox News, I think somebody in Maryland won that last night.
Yeah.
May have heard that. Hey, are things any different in trying to make an estate plan with COVID this past year?
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact, the answer to that is yes, because, I'm always talking about, there's a lot of people that pass away or get incapacitated and they don't have a will or a plan in place. It's a high percentage. It's something like 88% of the population doesn't have something. And now going on with this pandemic and stuff, I can tell you some horror stories, some that I've read about, some I've helped some colleagues with, and some, are people that walk in my office and we talk about. We've got this pandemic. We've got families who are not able to be in the same room with each other. If you're, and they're sending texts back and forth. I can't even hardly imagine that. Can you? Text back and forth. They're trying to tell them where the insurance documents are, where, what their burial wishes are, what's to be done with the family business that they run, together. Of course, having a family business is a whole other topic that I'm going to talk about some other day on the program. But what to do with that? All the things that you've not taken care of now, might have to be handled in this ridiculous or terrible way, kind of last minute, put it together. And it's hard. I can't imagine how hard that would be, because your mind probably already pretty consumed with, the grief and the illness and stuff like that. So yeah, it is considerably different now because of that.
Stan, I know when you've been here before, you've talked about how probate can take a long time. Has COVID affected this as well?
Well, yes, it has, because when you're in probate, one of the disadvantages that I mentioned is it does take a while. Statistically in Tennessee, it takes 12 to 16 months. And there's reasons for that. People always say, why in the world does it take so long? Why can't you just do what the will says in probate? Well, we do, but there's reasons. We have creditor rights, and they're open for 12 months after death, and other things, requirements that are statutory, inventory. People have an opportunity to question that and to object to certain things. So there's procedural things that really cause that length of time. And so you can imagine, under normal circumstances, it takes 12 to 16 months statistically in the state of Tennessee. Here in our neck of the woods, it's, I'm sure Alex could attest to this because she helps me with probate cases. It's every bit of a year for the most part. It just works out that way. Now, that's under normal circumstances. We just recently had our Supreme Court issue an order saying there's no in-person court now extended to the end of March. So, and we've had several orders all throughout 2020 about limiting in-person or not having it at all. So now you can't even hardly get into court to even get the thing started, let alone do some of the court procedural methods of accomplishing the probate goals and the milestones along the way. So it's just, the delay is just going to be compounded. We're still doing it, but we're noticing it's taking us even longer to do certain things. Some things you can do outside of court, but whenever court has to be involved with approval or have hearings or have some reports submitted to the court, it just is a tremendous backlog now because you can't, it's limited. You got one person in the courtroom at a time. You got a hallway of 50 people with whatever their case is. It has really affected that.
I wonder sometimes if it'll ever untangle. I'm talking about the backlog, man.
If you ever, in General Sessions Court, which is Thursday, it's going on right now, by the way, our normal General Sessions Day, and whenever they have a day off or a holiday and they have to skip a Thursday, it seems like the next 3 or 4 are like multi-page long dockets, just
Yeah.
picking up the slack. But you're absolutely right. So,
I can imagine.
so anyway, those are things you need to consider. Like I said, if you have a plan, you probably need to review it. If you don't, I mean, from what I said today, you can understand why you should have one. So that's what we do down there at Pachowski Estate Law, Pachowski Elder Law. We do nothing but estate planning. We do elder planning, Medicaid planning, crisis planning. Give us a call and talk to us. We've got something that'll work for you. It's never too late. I mean, I always say do it ahead of time. That's the best. But it's really never too late to get something in place because there's always something we can do. And I guarantee you, whatever your family dynamics and circumstances are, we've got a strategy or a plan that will help.
All right, phone number one more time.
Over there in the southeast corner of the square, the phone number is 931-363-7222. Or just stop in and talk to me. I'm a talkable fellow.
Thank you, Stan.
Okay, thank you.
Good to have you. We'll see you next Thursday morning at 8:30 from Pachowski Estate Law. Thank you. All right.